What's going on, baseball fans? How are we doing? So we continue on with our positional rankings for 2022, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the outfielders. Let's go talk about it. Before I start the rankings, I just wanted to give a quick rundown of how I'm going to be doing the outfielders. So in the other positional rankings, I've gone through all of the starters for all 30 MLB teams, but for the outfielders, I decided to just pick 40 of them who I thought are worthy of getting into the S, the A, the B, or the C tier. I feel like, just going lower than C, that's just a lot of outfielders at that point. Doing this, it's just going to save time. And also, just because outfielders, they tend to move around. If a guy's playing left, maybe sometimes he'll go play right, or a guy playing right sometimes maybe moves over to center. Maybe the center fielder plays left one day. So for me, I just wanted to keep it simple, go with 40 outfielders for this video. Let's start off with the guy that I think would have won the MVP for the National League last year had he not gotten hurt, and that's Ronald Acuna Jr. This guy was a beast through 82 games. It was such a shame when he went down, but I mean, come on, look at these numbers he was putting up. There is no way this guy was not going to win the MVP. I picked him to win the MVP before the season started, and I think my pick was looking pretty good until he got hurt. But I mean, look at these numbers. 82 games, hit 283, a 394 on base, 596 slugging, a 157 WRC plus, a 4.2 wins above replacement. I mean, Ronald Acuna Jr. has been so good since his rookie season of 2018. I think it would be a crime to put him anywhere other than an S. Let's talk about the American League Rookie of the Year, Randy Arozarena. Man, oh man, this guy, he is the real deal. Go back to the postseason a couple of years ago. This guy was going off, set a record for home runs in a postseason, and he kept on doing his thing last year, winning a Rookie of the Year. Hit 274, 356 on base, 459 slugging, a 128 WRC plus, 20 home runs, also had 20 stolen bases. If I were to nitpick here, it's just the strikeouts with Randy Arozarena. 28% strikeout rate last year while having under 10% walks. Got to improve on that. I mean, imagine what his on-base percentage could be if he could just walk a little bit more. Need a bit of a better eye at the plate. Defensively, as you can see here, he had negative 9.6 defense. But if you take a further look at the defense, he was really good out in left field. He had 7 defensive runs saved and a 1.7 UZR. He had a tough time out in right field last year. Negative 4 defensive runs saved with a negative 3.9 UZR. So it looks like left field is going to be probably the best home for Randy Arozarena. So to me, I'm convinced with Arozarena. I mean, the postseason he had a couple of years ago, he was really good in the postseason this past year too. He was hitting really well against my Red Sox before the Red Sox moved on to the ALCS. Good season last year. I'm convinced. I'm going A for Randy Arozarena. This guy's the real deal. On to one of the most fun players last year, Akil Baddoo. Man, I liked me some Akil Baddoo last year. In his rookie season, he hit 259, a 330 on base, a 436 slugging, 13 homers, a 108 WRC plus. Not the best numbers out there, but Akil Baddoo, he was really good with his legs, had 18 stolen bases last year. And taking a look at his base running, he had a 3.9 base running, a negative 5 in the field. So that is going to have to improve overall. If we take a look further, out in left, he played over 400 innings there. He did have 1 defensive run saved. Center field had a bit more of a tough time. Right field, he had 1 defensive run saved. So if we go take a look at the depth chart for the Tigers next year, they have Akil Baddoo projected to play out in left. So as we just saw a second ago, left field, it seems to be a decent home for him. But with Akil Baddoo, I mean, these are some really good numbers, I think. I mean, not the best numbers, but pretty solid for his rookie season. I love the speed that he brings. I love what he does on the bases. Overall, I think right now we just go to a C tier for Akil Baddoo, but hey, this guy can just keep getting better. The Cardinals had one of the best defenses last year, and Harrison Bader was a huge reason for it. Let's actually go look at those defensive numbers first. Out in center field last year, had 15 defensive runs saved and 11.4 UZR. He was one of the best defenders in all of Major League Baseball last year. The only question with Harrison Bader really has just been the bat. If you take a look at his overall numbers, nothing too flashy. He hit 267, a 324 on base, 460 slugging, 16 homers, a 110 WRC plus, but he was way better in the second half. If you take a look here, second half, he had a 117 WRC plus compared to 93 in the first half. In the first half, he only hit 234, but that got up to 281. in the second half. In the first half, had a 308 on base and a 439 slugging. And then the second half, it went up to a 331 on base and a 469 slugging. If we take a look at Baseball Savant, he actually ranked in the top 20% in max exit velocity, but his average exit velocity ranked near the bottom. So I think that just shows there's more power to be had with Harrison Bader. I think he just needs to, just keep getting those reps, keep getting those at-bats, and I think he will get better with the bat. And actually, the projections think so as well. Last year, he had 16 home runs, but for 2022, they're thinking he's going to have over 20 home runs. I think, honestly, this guy is just going to keep getting better. The glove is already amazing. And for that, I'm going to go B for Harrison Bader. I could see some of you maybe thinking C, but I really enjoyed that second half that he had. And I think there's a lot more room left in the tank. And I just love that glove. So I'm going to go B for Harrison Bader. Here's an interesting one. Cody Bellinger. Man, oh man, how far this star has fallen. If you take a look at these numbers last year, only hit 165, 10 home runs, a 240 on base, a 302 slugging, under a 50 WRC plus. Granted, he went through some injuries last year, but this was a guy just a couple of years ago winning an MVP. This guy's 2019 season was off the charts. He had 47 home runs, 115 RBIs, hit 305 with a 406 on base and a 629 slugging, a 161 WRC plus. Cody Bellinger was fantastic in 2019, but the last couple of years he's been going through some injuries. He's gotten out of whack, but according to some reports out of spring training, actually, as of yesterday, Dave Roberts, he was talking about Bellinger, says that he thinks that he has found a consistent setup at the plate. So we're going to have to wait and see how Bellinger does this year. They are giving him some pretty decent projections, a 245 average, but they think his home runs are going to go back up to 26. They think he's going to have a 478 slugging. I think Bellinger, man, this is a guy, he was just so good a couple of years ago. There's just so much room left in the tank for Cody Bellinger. He's only 26 years old. I will say this, obviously the last couple of years have not been very good, but I still think there is a really good player in there. I think this is a very debatable one. I could see a lot of people going anywhere on this list. For me, I'm going to go B for Cody Bellinger. I think he has fallen off a bit, but I definitely think, these are the rankings for right now. This isn't what I think he's going to be. I think he absolutely could get back to an A. I think he absolutely could get back up to an S. But for right now, at this very moment, I think we have to go B. That's just my opinion. Let me know where you think he should be in the comments. I would love to know what you think. On to his teammate and an old friend, Mookie Betts. I still cry myself to sleep every night that Mookie Betts is not in a Red Sox uniform, but that's okay. The Red Sox are doing fine. I digress. Mookie Betts, yes, he did go through some injuries last year, but this guy still had a really solid season last year. Hit 264, 367 on base, a 487 slugging, a 131 WRC plus, 23 home runs, drove in 58 RBIs. Mookie Betts, in my opinion, he's still a superstar player. He was just a little banged up last year. There is no reason to think that Mookie Betts, as of right now, is anything lower than an S tier. On to Michael Brantley. Michael Brantley continues to be a pretty solid player. He did miss some time last year, only played 121 games out of the 162. But the thing with Michael Brantley that I've always loved is his on-base percentages. His on-base was still really good last year, 362, hit 311 last year. But the slugging, that was a little down last year, 8 home runs. The WRC plus still looked pretty good at 123. But the slugging definitely took a dip. If you go to take a look at 2019, it was a 503. 2020, it went down to a 476. And then last year, it went down to 437. So he is still hitting for contact. He's still getting on base. But with Michael Brantley, he's going to be okay in the field as well. He has the negative 9.1 defense doesn't look all that great. But if we take a look at the advanced numbers out there, in left field, he had 2 defensive runs saved last year, a negative 1.7 UZR. It's kind of whatever out in left field. He's 34 years old. He's not getting any younger. I feel like with Brantley, because of the power dropping off just a little bit, I want to go C right now for Michael Brantley. I don't think he, out in left field, I don't think, if I were to do just a left field ranking, I don't think he would be a C. I think he would be more near the top. But in overall outfielders, I would put him at a C. Let's move on to the newest Colorado Rocky, Kris Bryant. Listen, Kris Bryant, I still think is one of the most solid players in the game. Last year, kind of revitalized himself. A bad 2020, but really picked up the pace last year. Hit 265, a 353 on base, 481 slugging. That's pretty solid. 25 home runs, a 123 WRC plus. But the beauty of Kris Bryant is that he can move around. He can play multiple positions. As you can see here, played 55 at third, 48 in left last year, 39 in right field, 19 in center field. Played one game at shortstop, and then he played 12 at first base. So Kris Bryant, the beauty in him, a huge part of his game is being able to move around. So how often will he, stay out in the outfield? I think he will have a good amount of time in the outfield, but I definitely could see him playing some third, some first here and there. We'll have to wait and see, but I think for the majority, I would say he probably plays most of his time out in left field. But that is a very big bright side of Kris Bryant. Out in left field, if we were to kind of take a look at his defensive numbers, last year he had -1 defensive runs saved, -2.3 UZR. At first base, he had 1 defensive run saved. He had -2 at third base. So he's not going to be like a plus defender, but he'll get the job done for the most part. The fact that he can go out there and play these positions, and not just completely, destroy your defense, I think that's valuable. For Kris Bryant, I still think the bat is really good. I still think he's a really solid player. I think he's a winning player. I think he's going to be good for the Rockies. I think that is going to be a good fit. That versatility alone is just going to be really nice for them. I still think he's a really good bat. I think he's still an A-tier player. I think Kris Bryant is one of the better bats out of this group. Byron Buxton. This guy could be one of the best players in the game if he could just stay on the field. I feel like that's just beating a dead horse at this point. On all of my streams, I feel like that's exactly what I say about Byron Buxton all the time, but it's true. Byron Buxton would be a legit superstar if he could just stop getting hurt. Look at these numbers from last year. Over 61 games, he hit 306, 19 home runs, a 358 on base, a 647 slugging, a 169 WRC plus. He had a 4.2 wins above replacement through 61 games. Are you kidding me? This guy, he was on pace to be a 10-win player last year. I mean, the defense was really good with him. The base running was at a 4.4. I mean, what the heck? This guy is really good. We just got to stay on the field. Listen, this guy, you never know. You don't know what you're going to get. But they are projecting 131 games next year. Let's see if he can get to that. And if he does get to it, they have him hitting 269, 32 home runs, with a 314 on base. That is a bit of a drastic drop-off right there. So we'll have to see what he ends up getting. They have the slugging falling off a little bit. They have the WRC plus falling off. They still have him being a 5-win player. So we're going to have to wait and see. But Byron Buxton, the talent alone, I think, speaks for itself. I'm going to put him at an A. I know for a lot of people that might be too much. I could see because of the injuries, maybe a B. I don't think he's a C. I could see an argument for the B because of the health. I could see an argument for S because of those ridiculous numbers that he put up. So I'm going to go in the middle. I'll go A for Byron Buxton. Mark Canha, I think he is really underrated. I really like his game. He's not going to give you anything flashy by any means. A 231 average, 17 home runs. Those are kind of whatever. But on base of 358, I really like that. The slugging, a little low, 387. But overall, with Mark Canha, he can move around. He can play all 3 outfield positions. Stole 12 stolen bases last year. That was a career high. So I like Mark Canha. I don't think he's going to be, one of the most amazing outfielders, but I think he's just going to be really solid. I also like some of these numbers here. We've got some blues up here with the exit velocity, hard hit percentage. But what I like about him is he walks a lot. He doesn't chase a lot. He doesn't swing and miss a lot. He's got some decent speed. He's going to play some pretty decent defense. Fangraphs doesn't like his defense, but Baseball Savant does like his defense. So with Mark Canha in left field, if we were to just do, which is where he is projected to play most of the time next year, I would put him higher on the list, but overall outfielders, I will just put him at a C for now. Dylan Carlson had a pretty solid rookie season last year. If we take a look at the numbers, he hit 266, a 343 on base, 437 slugging, a 113 WRC plus, 18 homers. Dylan Carlson, man, I really like what he brings to the St. Louis Cardinals. At only 23 years old, these are pretty solid numbers. With Dylan Carlson on Baseball Savant, he ranked in the top half of max exit velocity. He ranked in the top half in walk percentage. He ranked pretty high in chase rate as well. I really like that. And this guy is just going to bring you some athleticism. He ranked near the top in sprint speed. So there are some blues here. I definitely would like for these to come up. The projections for next year, they have him playing at around the same. Honestly, I think he can get better than this. You know, he's a young player. I mean, there's always a chance a guy can take a step back. But with Dylan Carlson, man, I really like what he brings to the table. I think he will keep getting better. For him overall, I think right now I'm going to go B. I really like Dylan Carlson. A lot of this placement is based off of what I think he could end up being. But I like his game. I'm going to go B. Up next, we have a 2-for-1 special. The newest Phillies, Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber. These guys had some good seasons last year. Nick Castellanos hit 309, a 362 on base, a 576 slugging, 34 homers, a 140 WRC plus. Castellanos with the bat last year. Man, this guy was just on fire. Kyle Schwarber, when he came to my Red Sox, he was just phenomenal. Overall, had a 145 WRC plus last year, 374 on base, 554 slugging. Hurt his hamstring at one point, so he was only limited. He was limited to 113 games. But man, these guys, their bats did a lot of the talking. They're not going to be the most graceful out there in the field. I would imagine these two guys are going to be splitting time between designated hitter and left field. Maybe Castellanos can go play a little bit of right field. So I definitely think we're going to see these guys rotate in and out of the outfield, you know, depending on who needs a day off and whatnot. But these guys, I think because of their bats, we got to put them at an A. These two guys are going to be huge for the Phillies' top of the order. Joey Gallo. I could see this one being very debated in the comments on where he should be on this list. With Joey Gallo, it's interesting because there's a lot of good about Joey Gallo, but there's a lot of bad about Joey Gallo as well. Let's start with the good. 38 home runs, 351 on base. Those are pretty solid numbers. Now, the things that with Joey Gallo, I'm not the biggest fan of. Obviously, the low batting average, the strikeouts. He struck out almost 35% of his at-bats last year. That's a lot of strikeouts. But, and also, a bit of a nitpick here, the slugging. A 458 slugging. I would think for a guy who had 38 home runs last year would have a bit of a higher slugging and a higher WRC plus. So maybe I'm nitpicking there a little bit. But Joey Gallo, there's definitely some things I like about his game, and there's some things I'm not a big fan of. Another couple of things I do like. I like the base running, 4.2 base running. That's pretty solid. He is going to walk a decent amount, an 18% walk rate. If you take a look, that's actually right near the top of the league. So he's just such an enigma of a player. It's so interesting. It's either you're going to love him or you're going to hate him. There's a lot of Reds here, but there's also the Blues are bad. You know, the bottom 1% of the league. Joey Gallo, for me, this is the best way I can think of it. If this was just a left fielder list, he's an S tier for me. But with overall outfielders, I'm going to go B for Joey Gallo. I think it's either there's so many highs, but there's so many lows with Joey Gallo as well. He tends to get a little streaky too. So I'm going to go B for Joey Gallo. For me personally, I think that's a good spot. But please let me know what you think down below in the comments. I'm really interested to see what you all think where he should be on this list. On to the newest Miami Marlin, Aviseo Garcia. I really did like this signing for the Miami Marlins. I thought it was really solid. They needed to add a bat there. That offense was just so bad last year. And I think Aviseo Garcia, he's not going to burn any walls down with his bat, but he's going to be a pretty solid one. Last year had 29 home runs with the Brewers, had a 330 on base, 490 slugging. That's not too bad. The WRC plus, I would like to come up a little bit, 115 last year. But with Aviseo Garcia, he's going to give you some solid defense, a 3.1 defense last year. If we take a look at the advanced numbers, overall, in right field last year, had 8 defensive runs saved and a 7.8 UZR. That is not bad. Overall last year, he had 8 defensive runs saved and an 8.2 UZR. I really like Aviseo Garcia. I think he's pretty solid, and I really hope he keeps it going. He is 30 years old, so how much more left in the tank does he have? We'll have to wait and see. But last year was kind of, his last really good season before that was in 2017. And then he had a few seasons there where he just wasn't really doing all that much. I mean, I guess in 2019 he was pretty decent, but definitely last year was better. I want to see these numbers again. I want to keep seeing a bit of an improvement, or at least, get close to those numbers again. So for right now with Alejandro Garcia, I'll stick with a C. I definitely think for the Marlins, it's going to be a really nice pickup for them. Robbie Grossman was a guy that I thought didn't get talked enough about last year. Robbie Grossman had a really solid 357 on base and had 23 home runs last year. Pretty solid. The defense isn't going to be anything, that's amazing. If we actually go take a look at the more advanced numbers, the defensive runs saved out in left field, he had -1, but he had a 2.5 UZR. Again, he's not going to be amazing out in the outfield, but he's going to get the job done for the most part. I think Robbie Grossman, I think he's a C. He's going to give you some power. He's going to get on base for you. I think he's a solid player to have. He's not going to cost all that much. Robbie Grossman, I got it a C. Mitch Haniger last year I thought was really solid. Taking a look at the numbers, he had 39 home runs, a 485 slugging. That's not too shabby if you ask me. The batting average, kind of whatever at 253, 318 on base. I think that's pretty low. For someone that had 39 home runs, I would also imagine, man, that slugging. I would like for that slugging to be a little bit higher. WRC plus, I would like to be a little bit higher as well, especially if he had 39 home runs, 120 WRC plus. He struck out a lot last year, 24.5%. I mean, he's not going to strike out like Joey Gallo, but he's going to strike out a little bit. The walks were under 8%. The defense wasn't anything amazing last year. Out in right field, let's take a look here. Out in right field, he had -3 defensive runs saved, a -1.9 UZR. With Haniger, yes, he's going to hit some home runs. He's going to drive in some runs, but he's not great at getting on base. He strikes out a little bit. He's not great in the outfield. So I think he's kind of, in a way, almost kind of like Joey Gallo a little bit. Joey Gallo is going to be more drastic on each end of the spectrum. But Mitch Haniger, I think he's really solid. Kind of like Gallo. I'm going to kind of go in the middle. I want to see what you all think. Where do you think Haniger should be? I think the argument can be made for an A because obviously 39 home runs, 100 RBIs, that's pretty good. But for me, I want to see better on-base numbers. I want to see more of a WRC+. I want to see more of a slugging if you're hitting that many home runs. For Haniger, I'm going to kind of go in the middle here. I'll go a B. On to Philly to talk about the National League MVP, Bryce Harper. Man, oh man, did he have himself a good season. The Phillies did not make the playoffs, but man, he was doing everything he could to carry them down the stretch. Overall, I mean, hey, Bryce Harper, you know what you're going to get out of him. Last year, hit 309, 429 on base, 615 slugging, a 170 WRC+. That is incredible. 35 home runs. Last year, they don't have Shohei Ohtani here. Shohei Ohtani with the batting and the pitching ended up being the most wins above replacement on Fangraphs. So Bryce Harper would actually be fourth. But man, he ranked right near the top. I mean, what else is there to say? Bryce Harper, S tier. I always get excited to see what Bryce Harper is going to do. I think he is going to have another good season this year. They have him at a 5.1 wins above replacement. They have him actually hitting a couple more home runs next year. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm going S tier. Kike Hernandez. Man, oh man. I loved me some Kike Hernandez last year. This guy was awesome. First season with the Red Sox, he ended up being one of the most electric players in Beantown. Hit 250, 20 home runs, 337 on base, 449 slugging, a 110 WRC+, drove in 60 RBIs. He had 84 runs scored. With Kike Hernandez, man, I just really liked his overall game. The bat, I mean, these are decent numbers, but if we take a look at the fielding last year with Kike Hernandez, out in center field, he had 14 defensive runs saved. He had a 7.4 UZR. I don't think a lot of people realized how good those numbers were last year. Man, Kike Hernandez, honestly, and what he did in the postseason, his postseason numbers were absolutely ridiculous. Let's go take a look at those postseason numbers. This guy was on fire. Look what he did in the postseason. Over 11 games, he had 408, a 423 on base. He had a slugging of 837. He had 5 home runs. This guy was off the charts in the postseason. I'm going to go A. for Kike Hernandez. I'm going to go A. I'm sold. I love me some Kike Hernandez. Maybe that's a little bit of giraffe neck Robbie, but I really think the bat was really good. The glove was awesome out in center field. The postseason numbers were awesome. I'm going A, Kike Hernandez. On to the Blue Jays and one of many of their really good bats, Teoscar Hernandez. A very good season for him last year. Hit 296, 32 homers, a 346 on base, a 524 slugging, a 132 WRC plus. Had 12 stolen bases in there as well. It's looking like Teoscar Hernandez is most likely going to be playing right field the majority of the time. If we take a look at his defense out in right field, I mean, not amazing, but not bad. -2 defensive runs saved, a 0.5 UZR. You know, he's going to get the job done for the most part. I'm sure he is going to DH some days. I could definitely see them doing some kind of a rotation. But these are fantastic numbers. I mean, taking a look at the Baseball Savant numbers, I mean, a lot of red up here. Yeah, he can strike out. He can definitely, or he most definitely will not walk all that much. He was in the bottom 20% last year. He tends to just swing and miss a lot. He chases a lot. So it would be nice if he can clean up that part of his game. But when you're looking at the overall stat line, I mean, a very good WRC plus, a very good slugging, a very good on base, a very good batting average, good amount of home runs, RBIs. He had 116 RBIs. He even threw in some speed, 12 stolen bases. He had a 2.3 base running. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez, I'm not going to quite put him at an S tier. I just don't think the defense, if the defense was better, then yeah, I'll definitely give him it. But for now, I think just Teoscar Hernandez, he's an A. I mean, I'm making it sound like it's a bad thing, but he's very good. I just don't think he's quite at a S tier, but gotta love that balanced stat line with Teoscar Hernandez. Aaron Judge, he had himself a good season, and thank the Lord, the guy could finally stay healthy. Had 148 games last year, hit 287, a 373 on base, a 544 slugging, 148 WRC plus, 39 homers, a 5.5 wins above replacement. Aaron Judge last year also in the field was pretty solid. If we take a look, you know, Aaron Judge is one of those guys that I think is kind of underrated out in the field because you think he's just like this big guy. He's not going to do much out there. But last year in right field, he had 11 defensive runs saved and a 3.4 UZR. Those are really good. I mean, Aaron Judge, no brainer. He's an S tier. Let's see if the Yankees will get him locked up to a long-term deal. Here's a guy who I didn't think would be on this list just yet, but here he is. Julio Rodriguez. Is looking like Kyle Lewis is going to miss the start of the season. And Julio Rodriguez, they're giving him a look out there in center field. It's looking like he could win the job out in center field. If we actually go take a look at Julio Rodriguez's spring training stats, they're looking quite dandy so far. He's having himself a good spring. Taking a look here, 27 at-bats so far. He's got a couple of home runs. He's hitting 370, a 433 on base, over an 1100 OPS. I mean, he's having himself a good spring. I don't see why this guy won't win a roster spot for the Mariners. He's been that good. Julio Rodriguez, man, there is a lot to like with him. There's a reason he's one of the top prospects in the game. Honestly, I think there's an argument for him to be the #1 prospect in the game. I do like me some Adley Rutschman. I do like Bobby Witt Jr., but Julio Rodriguez, man, this guy is just special. He's going to be a really good player. I mean, take a look at the hit tool. Already at a 50, could be a 60 in the future. Game power of 55, could be 70 in the future. Raw power right now at 60, could be 70. Already got 60 speed. He's going to be fine out in the field. Could end up being a 55. This guy's going to be really good. I'm telling you, I really want to put him at a B, but I got to stay consistent. A lot of these prospects, I've been starting, you know, more either in the middle or the lower part of the tiers. I got to stay consistent. You have to see what they do. By the end of the season, if he ends up having a full season, I mean, I don't see why this guy couldn't be an A. I mean, I don't know if he'll make it up to an S in his rookie year, but this guy can definitely climb the ranks. But I got to stay consistent. I'm going to start at a C for Julio Rodriguez, but I am very excited to watch him play. This player being on this list might come as a surprise to some people, but here he is, Max Kepler. You might be thinking, why is Max Kepler on here? He had a pretty bad year last year. Only hit 211, a 306 on base, a 413 slugging, a 95 WRC plus, 19 home runs is okay, but not anything amazing. But here is where I want everyone to pay attention with Max Kepler. Look at all the reds on Baseball Savant. Are you kidding me? This guy was in reds on everything last year. Max Kepler, not too long ago, 2019, had himself a really good season in 2019. A 4.5 wins above replacement, had 36 homers, 90 RBIs, a 519 slugging that year. Now, if we take a look at the career splits, let me pull up the career splits here. He's definitely been better against righties in his career. He's only hit 209 against lefties, but he's hit 242 against righties. If we take a look at more of the advanced numbers here, against righties, he has a 113 WRC plus, but against lefties, it's only 69. So he's a bit of a platoon bat. But when I'm looking at all these Reds here, you know, he's hitting the ball well, still, you know, ranks pretty well in hard hit percentage and average exit velocity. He was in the top 25% of max exit velocity. He doesn't really chase. That's a really good thing with him. He walks a good amount. He's also still good out in the field. If we take a look at his defensive numbers last year, let me go back to his main page. If we take a look here, while it was a negative 0.1 defense, if we look at the defensive runs saved, he had 9 defensive runs saved out in right field last year. Those are really solid numbers, 5.4 UZR. I think Max Kepler, because of the more advanced numbers, I'm going to put him on this list. He's going to be at a C, but because of those advanced numbers, it got him on here. I'm excited to see what he can do next year. If we look at his projections, they're pretty friendly with the projections. They see his WRC plus, slugging, on base, batting average, home runs, all going up. So we're going to have to wait and see what Max Kepler will do. But again, because of the advanced numbers, he makes this list, and I have him at a C. On to Ramon Laureano. He won't be with the A's to start the season. He's still serving his suspension for testing positive for PEDs. But I think Ramon Laureano is one of the more solid outfielders in the game. Plays a great center field. Last year in 88 games, had a 246 average, a 317 on base, 443 slugging, 14 homers, a 111 WRC plus. With, you know, the bat, he's not going to be anything special by any means, but he's going to give you a little bit of everything. He's going to hit for some average. He's going to get on base a little bit. He's going to hit some home runs. He's also going to steal some bases for you. Had 12 stolen bases last year. You know, 443 slugging is not great, but it's not terrible either. With Ramon Laureano, you're going to get some Reds and you're going to get some Blues with him. He's going to rank near the top when it comes to max exit velocity, in the top 15% last year. He gets a lot of barrels on the ball, so that's why I think he still could improve with the bat. He tends to make some pretty good contact. He just needs to put it together a little bit more. But in the field, Ramon Laureano, very solid. Last year, over 724 innings, had 4 defensive runs saved, a 2.8 UZR. I think he just does everything pretty good. He's just all around. I definitely think the bat could get better. For now, I'm going to go C. You know, that also, you know, how's he going to be after coming off of his suspension? We're going to have to wait and see. But for now, I'll go C for Ramon Laureano. Holy cow, what a season Starling Marte had last year. Look at these numbers. Hit 310, a 383 on base, a 458 slugging, a 134 WRC plus over 120 games. He had 47 stolen bases last year. He had a 12.3 base running. This guy was fantastic. Looking at the advanced numbers, the average exit velocity was not great, but his max exit velocity was very good. He did rank in the bottom half in hard hit percentage, but the expected batting average, the xWOBA, the x slugging, those are all really solid. But, you know, with Starling Marte, I really like Starling Marte. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for him. You know, there were times where I was like, oh, maybe the Red Sox would go for this guy. I mean, there's just a lot to like here. You know, the bat was really solid last year. Now, you know, a lot of people are wondering, like, okay, is he going to do this again? You know, he had a 34.6 offense last year. You know, that was the highest of his career, and that was at 32 years old. He did miss some time. So that is one thing, you know, to consider. How's the health going to be moving forward? But man, these are some really good numbers. He was actually one of the better outfielders last year. He was in the top 3 in Fangraph WAR last year. I think with Starling Marte, you know, for me, I don't think he's an S tier. I know that might sound crazy to some of you, but, you know, there are some things I don't quite like. I don't like the average exit velocity. He does tend to chase a lot, shown here by ranking in the bottom half in chase rate. He doesn't walk as much as I would like him to, even though the on-base percentage was pretty good. He only had an 8.2 walk percentage last year. You know, I do worry about the health just a little bit. I wonder how he's going to be moving forward, 33 years old. I still think he's going to be really good for the next couple of years. The projections actually think he is going to come back down to earth next year. They think his batting average is going to drop. They think the on-base is going to drop, the slugging. So I'm kind of weighing all these things. I don't think he's an S tier, but I'm going to go A for Starling Marte. I think he's really solid. He's one of my more favorite players in the game. I'm not going to go S tier. I'll go A. You know, I'm a fan of Starling Marte, but I'm also a big fan of Whit Merrifield, man. I really like his game. He's not going to be anything flashy with the bat. Hit 277 last year, 10 homers, a 317 on base. Under a 400 slugging, under a 100 WRC plus. But well, Whit Merrifield, where he's going to bring you value is that he can move around, he's got versatility, and he's got speed. He had 40 stolen bases last year. He had a 7.4 base running. Now, with Whit Merrifield, you know, it was kind of weird how the on-base kind of tanked last year. His slugging percentages tanked. I definitely think he can improve. He's 32 years old, but this is a guy who's shown good batting averages over the years, good on bases over the years, and good sluggings over the years. You know, first time his WRC plus dipped below 100 for the first time since his rookie season. So, you know, Whit Merrifield, I think he's a pretty solid player. I would love to have a Whit Merrifield. I think he would have been perfect for the Yankees last year. For Whit Merrifield, I'm going to go B. Honestly, I just think he's also kind of an intangibles guy. He's just a good veteran guy to have on the team. He's going to really give you a lot on the bases. He's going to give you a lot of speed. He's going to hit enough. He's going to get on base enough. And I do think those numbers could go back up next year. With Merrifield, I'm going to go with a solid B. One of the best players in all of baseball last year, Cedric Mullins. Man, did he have himself a really good year last year. Hit 291, 360 on base, a 518 slugging, a 136 WRC plus, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases. The first Baltimore Oriole to have 30 home runs and 30 stolen bases in a single season. Had a 5.3 wins above replacement last year. This guy was just off the charts. He used to be a switch hitter. He gave up switch hitting, focused on left-handed hitting, and man, did that pay off. He is going to be really good. Only 27 years old. Man, I really like Cedric Mullins. But with Cedric Mullins, I do want to just see this again. I want to see these kind of numbers again. If he can show these kind of numbers again for a second straight season, I definitely think he could be an S tier. For now, what a season he had. I'm going to go A tier for Cedric Mullins. On to another Mets outfielder, Brandon Nimmo. Man, I really like me some Brandon Nimmo. This guy's an on-base machine. He's had 2 straight seasons with a 400 on base. He had a 375 on base in 2019, and he had a 400 on base again in 2018. This guy just gets on base. Look at the advanced numbers. Look at the chase rate. He was at the very top when it comes to chase rate. He was in the top 5% in walk percentage last year. Brandon Nimmo, man, this guy is just a master at getting on base. With Brandon Nimmo, he's also going to give you some batting average. Hit 292 last year. Had a 437 slugging. That's not the best, but not bad by any means. His power has dipped a bit since 2018. He had 17 home runs there. 8 home runs last year. So those have definitely gone down. He's not going to drive in a whole lot of runs. He's also going to be pretty solid out there in the outfield. A 4.4 defense last year. With Brandon Nimmo, I could definitely see. Oh, also, I want to point this out as well. 92 games last year. I definitely want to see him play more games consistently. He only played 69 in 2019, 92 last year. So I want to see just him being on the field a little more consistently. With Brandon Nimmo, I think this could be a big debate on where to put him here. I could see a lot of people going A. I could see a lot of people saying B. With Brandon Nimmo, I think if you were to put him on a center field list, I definitely think he would be an A. But for me, in an overall outfielder list, I'm going to go B. Personally, I definitely could see an argument for an A. Mets fans, let me know what you think down below. I know I'm probably making you upset here, but let me know. If you think he's an A, give me some reasons why. But for me, I'm going to stay a little more conservative. I'm going to go B. On to the newest Chicago White Sox, A.J. Pollock. Who saw this one coming? Going back to the Dodgers was Craig Kimbrell, and going to the White Sox, A.J. Pollock. It's looking like he will be their right fielder. They had a bit of a hole there. They had some guys that they could have put in, but A.J. Pollock, it just seems like the most natural fit there. AJ Pollock last year mostly played left field. He had 3 defensive runs saved out there, a negative 1.3 UZR. Center field, he played a little bit out there. He was kind of, just whatever out there. So he actually hasn't played right field since 2013. So that's going to be really interesting. With AJ Pollock, if we take a look here, the outfielder jump, not very good. Outs above average was not great last year on Baseball Savant. So I wonder how he'll do out there in right field. We'll have to wait and see. But as for the bat with AJ Pollock, it really came alive last year. Hit 297, 21 home runs, a 536 slugging, a 355 on base, a 137 WRC plus. Really solid numbers offensively. And if we take a look back at Baseball Savant, a lot of reds here with all of the expected numbers. Exit velocity is very good. Hard hit percentage is good, which the White Sox will need more of. They actually ranked in the bottom half in hard hit percentage last year. So AJ Pollock is going to be a nice fit for them. It fills a need. It's going to be interesting to see what the White Sox end up doing with guys like Andrew Vaughn. Who's going to be the designated hitter? Are they just going to do a platoon of Gavin Sheets and Vaughn out there? I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. But as for AJ Pollock, I think he's solid. The right field fit is a bit of a question mark for me. But I think with the bat last year, he really did a lot with that bat. And for me personally, I'm going to go B. AJ Pollock, man, like I said, the bat, really good last year. The defense, I'm a little about. It wasn't always great to begin with, and now I'm especially a little iffy about it for him being in right field. We'll have to wait and see. But for here, I'll go B. Bryan Reynolds had such a good season at the plate last year. Look at these numbers. Almost played a full season, just a few games shy. Hit 24 homers, a 302 average, a 390 on base, 522 slugging, a 142 WRC plus. Had 90 RBIs. Bryan Reynolds, man, this guy, 2019 in his rookie season, he was really good. Had a 3.2 Fangraph WAR. Down season in 2020, he really took a step back. A lot of people were starting to get a little worried about him, but he bounced right back this past season. He's on the rumor mill, it feels like, all the time. Could he end up still getting traded? We'll have to wait and see. But he's not a free agent until 2026. One of the highest valued players in the game. Bryan Reynolds, now the question is, will he be an A or will he be an S? Now, the thing that holds me back a little bit with Bryan Reynolds, and I'd like to see some improvement, is the defense. If we take a look at his defense from last year, overall in the outfield, had -5 defensive runs saved and a -5.5 UZR. Mostly played center field last year, 137 games. Man, I can't believe I'm doing it because I really do want to go S, but I'm going to go A. I think he's really close to being an S tier. I just feel like A is the right spot right now. He's like high A, like A plus right now. I don't know if he's quite at an S. Just want to see a little more defense. I'd like to also see, can he put up these numbers again? He had a good first season, bad 2020 season, came back in 2021, had a good one. Let's see if he can have another good season like that. Let's see if he can improve the defense. And then easily I'll put him in the S tier down the road. But for me, it does pain me a little bit, but I'm going to go A. Quite possibly one of the next superstars in this game, Luis Robert. Luis Robert, man, this guy, it's only a matter of time before he really kicks it up a notch. They're projecting him for some good numbers next year. 149 games, 30 homers, a 281 average, a 334 on base, 502 slugging, a 4.8 wins above replacement. I mean, they're kind of doing him dirty on some of these offensive numbers here for his projections. They think his average is going to go down, his on base, his slugging, his WRC plus. I don't know. I think they're doing him a little dirty. I think this guy could easily be a 6-win player. He did miss some time this past year, only 68 games. So he's definitely going to have to find a way to, stay on the field a bit more. But I definitely think he can beat these projections. Absolutely do I think so. Last year, he only played the 68 games, so they're not going to show all of the numbers here. But max exit velocity, he was right at the top. He's one of the fastest players in the game. He's right in the almost about top 25%. He's extremely good in the outfield. Let's actually go take a look here at the advanced numbers. Taking a look in center field last year, 4 defensive runs saved. With Luis Robert, I definitely think it's only a matter of time before he is an S tier. I just need to see more. Look out for him this coming year, man. I definitely think he can beat those projections. And by the end of the year, I definitely think he could be right here. But for now, I'm going to stay in an A. Here's another guy that missed some time last year, George Springer. Man, George Springer, even though he only played 78 games last year, he did really good in those 78 games. Hit 264, 22 homers, a 352 on base, a 555 slugging, a 140 WRC plus. Out in the outfield, not the best defensive numbers, negative 3.1 defense, but this guy, the bat, man, it's really good. The only thing with him is he's just got to stay on the field, just like we were talking about with Luis Robert. He's always going to give you really good on-base numbers. He's always going to give you good slugging percentages. He's always going to give you a good enough batting average. He's going to hit home runs. He was on pace last year for 40 home runs and 100 RBIs. This is one of the better bats in the game. I think Springer, honestly, I think there is absolutely an argument for S tier. I want to just see him stay on the field a little bit more. I want to see that defense get a little bit better. It kind of pains me to say it, but I'm going to stick with an A right now for George Springer. I think he's extremely close to being an S tier, but I just want to see some better health out of him. If he comes back next year, 2022, and puts up a 40 home run, 100 RBI season like he was on pace for, or at least, gets kind of close to that, I definitely think he could be an S tier, but I'm going to stay conservative for now. I'm going to stick with an A. He's not going to give you a lot of power, but man, is he a good player. Myles Straw. Take a look at Myles Straw here. Yeah, you're not going to see a lot when it comes to slugging in the home runs, but that's not really his game. This guy, when he gets on base, which he does pretty well with a 349 on base last year, he's got a ton of speed, 30 stolen bases last year, 6.1 base running, but he's also going to be really good out in the field. Taking a look at these numbers, last year in the outfield, he had 4 defensive runs saved and an 8.6 UZR. He's going to get the job done and then some out there. But with Myles Straw, we definitely, we could use a little bit more power here. Only 4 home runs last year, a 348 slugging, a 98 WRC plus. Again, that's not really too much of his game, at least as of right now. If he could get some power into his game, I definitely think he could move up here. I'm going to go C right now for Myles Straw because he is kind of a one-dimensional player at this point. He can get on base, and he's going to give you some speed. He'll, get you some hits there as well. But for now, I'll stick with a C. But, man, could you imagine if this guy added some power? Oof, Myles Straw would be ridiculous. The newest Chicago Cub, Seiya Suzuki. I am really excited to see what he can do this year. In Japan last year for the Hiroshima Carp, hit 317, a 433 on base, a 639 slugging, 38 home runs, 88 RBIs. This guy was extremely good in Japan. This guy's got quick hands. He's got great bat speed. He's disciplined at the plate. I definitely think he could be a very good outfielder for the Cubs and in the major leagues. Kind of reminds me of Hideki Matsui a little bit. Seiya Suzuki, they're giving him good projections for next year, a 3.3 wins above replacement. They expect him to hit around 287, 368 on base, a 508 slugging, 27 home runs. Cubs fans, if you got that kind of production, I mean, you can only be happy with that. Those are really good numbers. But I'm going to treat Seiya Suzuki like I have with, some of these other minor leaguers that I've done in these rankings. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to stay conservative because, we got to wait and see. We got to wait and see. Remember, you had Kosuke Fukudome a while ago, coming from overseas, and he was touted as this, next big thing. And ended up kind of, just flaming out. I don't think Seiya Suzuki is going to be that way. I see a lot more promise in him, but for now, we're going to stick with a C. Mike Trout, he's an S. That's it. Okay, fine. I'll talk about Mike Trout a little bit. He is coming off of a season where he had a career low in games, so I'm kind of interested to see how he bounces back from those injuries. I think he is going to be just fine. The only question I have is whether or not he will still remain the best player in baseball by the end of the year. I definitely think Juan Soto has a shot of taking that crown. We'll have to wait and see. But Mike Trout, this guy was phenomenal in 36 games. This dude had a 466 on base, a 624 slugging. He literally had a 2.3 Fangraph WAR through 36 games. This guy was on pace for around a 10 wins above replacement for this year. Mike Trout, yeah, what else is there to say? On to one of the most underrated players in the game last year, Kyle Tucker. I mean, are you kidding me? This guy, no one ever talked about this guy. He was one of the best hitters in the Astros lineup last year. He hit 294, 359 on base, a 557 slugging. He had a 147 WRC plus. He had 30 home runs, a 4.8 wins above replacement. The only thing with Kyle Tucker last year, a phenomenal season last year, but the defense was a little low. 6.8 defense overall. If we take a look at the advanced numbers in the outfield, however, while that defense was low, he had 10 defensive runs saved. That's pretty good when it comes to outfield defense. Double-digit defensive runs saved. I mean, come on. When taking a look at Baseball Savant, he's Reds all over the place. With Kyle Tucker, the only thing that's holding me back from an S tier, I just want to see a bit more. Can he do this again for another season? I don't see why he couldn't. He's only 25 years old. I love me some Kyle Tucker. Easy A for me, and definitely could be an S by the end of the year. On to Alex Verdugo on my Red Sox. I really liked Doogie's game last year. Had some pretty solid numbers for the most part. Hit 289, had a good on base of 351. Had 13 home runs, a 107 WRC+, 426 slugging. That's the only thing I think is missing from Verdugo's game. He actually was talking a couple of days ago saying he would like to hit for more doubles. He doesn't necessarily think he needs to start hitting a whole ton of home runs, but he wants to start hitting for more extra base hits. If we take a look at his ISO percentage last year, only a 138 ISO. That's not too great. So I definitely see where he's getting at with wanting to just get, more extra base hits. Now, I don't think he needs to be like this 30 home run guy. I mean, I think 20 home runs would be, just fine, but I would like to see some more extra base hits out of him. The 138 ISO, not a big fan. Last year in the outfield, played mostly left field, had 7 defensive runs saved out there, so he's going to get the job done defensively. The UZR is, negative 2.2. Alex Verdugo, I definitely think there's still a lot left in this tank. I definitely think he can just keep improving. That's the most games he's played in his career. I just want to see, can he take another step forward coming into 2022? We'll have to wait and see. With Verdugo, I'm going to stick with a C for right now. I definitely think he could move up to a B or an A by the end of the year. Just want to see a little bit more power, a little bit more ISO percentage. On to the newest Seattle Mariner, Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker, man, this guy had a heck of a line last year. Hit 305, a 394 on base, a 556 slugging, a 148 WRC+, 24 home runs. He was injured a little bit, so he was limited to 110 games. But overall, a very solid season for Jesse Winker. But I'm going to go a little deeper here. So if we go take a look at his splits in 2021, taking a look here, against righties, he was awesome. He had pretty much all of his home runs against righties. He had 21 of his 24 home runs against righties. He hit 346 against righties. Now against lefties, he only hit 176. This guy was just abysmal against left-handed pitching. So we're definitely going to need for him to kind of step it up against lefties a little bit more. And also with Jesse Winker, not great defensively. -5 defensive runs saved, -1.9 UZR. So Jesse Winker, most of his damage came against right-handed pitching last year. So imagine if this guy could just start hitting lefties a little bit better. Imagine if he just starts playing in the field a little bit more. With Jesse Winker, I'm going to go A for right now. I think there even is an argument for a B just because of those splits. They are pretty drastic, and the fielding too. He just did so good against right-handed pitching, and the overall line was just so good. I'm going to go A. Let me know in the comments. Where do you think Jesse Winker should be? Do you think A is appropriate? I'd see an argument for a B, to be completely honest, just because of the splits. Only played 110 games last year. So I'm going to go A. That stat line was really good, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me know in the comments. Where do you think he should be? I am going to go A for now. On to San Francisco to talk about Mike Yastremski. Going back to 2020, he was looking like Carl Yastremski there. This guy was having an awesome 2020 season. And then he came back down to earth in 2021. Only hit 224. Only had a 311 on base. The slugging was okay at 457. Had 25 home runs, 71 RBIs. But we're definitely going to need Mike Yastremski. He was a bit of a late bloomer in his career, but if he could get back to a little bit more towards those numbers in 2020, I definitely think it's going to help his case here. There were some good signs last year. He was producing some decent average exit velocity. His max exit velocity was in the top 40%. He wasn't chasing a lot at the plate. He wasn't swinging and missing a whole lot. He was walking a good amount, and he was giving you some speed as well. And he was good in the outfield. Outs above average was in the top 10%. Taking a look at Mike Yastremski, overall in the outfield last year had 7 defensive runs saved. I think for now with Mike Yastremski, good amount of home runs, gets on base a good amount, plays good in the outfield. But overall, these other numbers really took a hit. The batting average was low. On base definitely could get better. He does walk a good amount, but he just has trouble getting on base overall. And the slugging, was pretty decent. I think with Mike Yastremski, there is room to improve. I'm going to go C for Mike Yastremski. Christian Yelich. Man, can we get this guy back to the numbers that he was putting up in 2018 and 2019? This guy was just amazing those couple of years. Good grief. Look at some of these numbers he was putting up. He had 44 home runs in 2019. Are you kidding me? With 30 stolen bases. This guy was off the charts in 2019. But he really has taken a step back in the last couple of years. He's dealt with some injuries, only played 117 games last year. His swing really got out of whack in 2020, only hit 205. But the one good thing about Christian Yelich is he continues to get on base at a good rate. Not the 2018, 2019 numbers, but hey, 356 in 2020, 362 last year. That's a good sign in my opinion. And there's some other good signs as well. Exit velocity still looked really good on average. Max exit velocity still looked really good. Hard hit percentage still looked pretty good. The one thing with Christian Yelich last year, while he did walk a lot, he did strike out quite a bit as well. That's why I think he's getting back on track, getting back to that hitter he used to be. I think he's still just cleaning up some things in his swing. Christian Yelich, man, this guy was a superstar player, just like Cody Bellinger a couple of years ago. And these two, they really hit some tough times. I'm going to put Christian Yelich the same spot as Cody Bellinger. I'm going to go with a B. I definitely think these two guys, they are prime candidates to be bounce back candidates, or amazing bounce back candidates this coming year. We're gonna have to wait and see. Christian Yelich, though, there is definitely a lot left there. I expect him to get back to some pretty good numbers. There still is a lot of hope with Christian Yelich. I definitely think he can bounce back. I mean, when you're looking at some of these numbers on Baseball Savant, the hard hit percentages, the exit velocities, they're still looking pretty good. Looking at these numbers here, they're projecting him for a 3.2 Fangraph WAR. They expect the home runs to come back up. I think this is appropriate. I definitely think he's going to have a better season in 2022. And I definitely think Cody Bellinger can get back to having a good season as well. These two guys are two guys I'm going to have my eye on quite a bit this coming season. But Christian Yelich, I do expect to have a really good season. For now, I'm going to put him at a B. So I did Christian Yelich, and then I thought to myself, I feel like something is missing off of this list. And I'm looking, and I'm looking, and I'm looking some more, and I'm thinking, holy cow, I left off Juan Soto. And then it dawned on me that I also left off Tyler O'Neill. What the heck is wrong with me? There's that potato brain at it again. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine if I didn't have these guys on this list? I wouldn't hear the end of it for the next 15, 20 years, probably even more than that. I digress. Let's go talk about Tyler O'Neill first. Tyler O'Neill last year really busted out. An amazing season from him last year out in left field. I think he is the best left fielder right now, and Fangraphs would agree. He had the highest wins above replacement on Fangraphs among left fielders. A lot of people would say, Jesse Winker, like someone like Ben Verlander thinks Jesse Winker, but Jesse Winker can't hit left-handed pitching. Tyler O'Neill, on the other hand, this guy was fantastic. Take a look at these numbers. Last year, a 5.4 wins above replacement, a 286 average, a 352 on base, a 560 slugging, a 145 WRC plus. Are you kidding me? Even stole some bases, 15 stolen bases. It does strike out a little bit. That's something that he needs to cut down on those strikeouts just a smidge, and maybe get those walks up a little bit too, if I were to nitpick. The BABIP was a little high last year. That is something to take note of. A 366 BABIP. That's a little high. I do think he will come back down to earth a little bit for next year, and the projections actually agree. They still think he's going to be a really good player, a 4-win player. They actually think the home runs are going to increase by 5. We'll have to wait and see, but they do see the average coming down a little bit. I could see that because that BABIP was really high. So I do think the average will go down, maybe 260, 270. And the on base, he did strike out a lot last year. That is one thing to take note of. So I could see the on base coming down a little bit, but hey, he's still 26 years old. This guy can still keep getting better. Let's see if he, can improve on those things going into 2022. They think the slugging's going to go down a little bit. Either way, Tyler O'Neill, I still think this guy is the best left fielder in the game. This guy just made a statement last year. He was awesome for the Cardinals. They're going to need him again. I like the Cardinals this year. I think they're going to have a really good season. And Tyler O'Neill, He's going to be front and center for the Cardinals. I think right now, I think he's an A. I think he earned that spot. No, I don't think he's an S right now, but man, do a couple more years of those seasons, I definitely think this guy could be an S tier down the road. But for now, I'm going to stick with an A. And last but not least, Juan Soto. What else is there to say? I'm going S tier. Point blank, I think Juan Soto could be the best player in the game when all is said and done. At the end of this season, I think we all could be saying Juan Soto is the best there is. You know, Mike Trout missed a lot of time last year. You know, what's Mike Trout going to be like moving forward? In his 30s now, you know, yeah, maybe, you know, he hasn't really been injured all that much in his career, but could this be the start of maybe some nagging injuries? I hope not, because I still think Mike Trout has a lot to offer. He's going to go down as one of the best players of all time. But Juan Soto, 23 years old, and this guy is putting up just some stupid numbers already. 465 on base last year. Are you kidding me? If you were to take a look at the splits from last year, in the first half, he was really good in the first half. The power was a little down. You know, a 519 slugging, you know, not that great. You know, 412 on base, you know, whatever. I'm just kidding. But the second half, he was even better. This guy had a 449 on base in the second half last year. His slugging went up by about 60 points. I mean, this guy was off the charts in the second half. WRC plus went up by 20 points. He's only going to keep getting better, man. What else is there to say? This guy's phenomenal. And I don't know what the Nationals are really going to do this year. Could they end up being maybe a pretty decent team? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But Juan Soto, this guy, in my opinion, I'm already maybe even going with it, that Juan Soto is the best in the game. I think a lot will still say that Mike Trout still holds that crown. But, man, I'm excited to see what Juan Soto will do in 2022. So those are my outfielder rankings heading into 2022. Tell me all your thoughts down below in the comments. But that's all I have for right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.